Welcome to Talking Pictures Trivia, the podcast in which a group of geographically challenged friends explore movies through trivia as an excuse to keep their friendships alive. I'm one of these friends, and today's host, Nick, and with me is
Tom,
KJ,
and Ragnar.
For those joining us for the first time, we start off each episode with a movie quiz, as these 4 rapid-fire trivia questions will determine who earns today's trivia crown. The first question is worth 1 point, and each question after that is worth 1 more point. Then we'll follow it up with a theme discussion, this week being fantasy and folklore with a history and in history. Tom, tell us about today's movie.
walking up to theaters in 2006, we would have had to choose between Tim Allen's The Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause, Daniel Craig's Casino Royale, George Miller's Happy Feet, and today's movie, Pan's Labyrinth. Pan's Labyrinth takes place after the war between the Loyalists, the Republicans, and the troops of Franco. And it follows a young girl whose mother has just been married to a captain in the Phalange. And this young girl, Ophelia, is thought to be a Princess Moana, a kind of a princess from this fantasy world. When she comes to the estate that her mother's new husband, this Captain Vidal, runs, she discovers a faun who leads her through a series of fantastical challenges in order to see if she is, in fact, Princess Moana resurrected.
Tom, is it literally Moana? Did they use that name?
I thought so.
What's okay?
Moana is the Disney movie. That's why I was getting confused here.
This came first. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it? It is the same
Same
name.
Same? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
just didn't
thought.
catch that in the film.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
And
And thank you.
It's time for question 1.
What year does the movie take place in?
Locked in.
It's kind of a cheat because I was reading something earlier. Locked in.
About Moana.
Well, yes, but it also had information about Franco.
Well, Franco was a long stretch.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but it had very specific information. I'm already locked in.
Locked in with a guess, and I'm very nervous, audience, what you'll think of me after I give my answer.
All right. So we'll start with Ragnar. What do you have?
I'm guessing KJ is going to be like 5 BC.
Obviously 10. Come on.
1944.
All right, Nick, you're up next.
Yes. A little while ago, I probably said early 40s, but it is 1944.
And KJ, what do you have?
I put 1940 even.
Okay, that's not a bad guess. But it is 1944.
It's time for question 2.
After entering the door to the feast chamber, how long does Ophelia have to complete the second challenge?
Locked in.
Locked in.
Locked in.
All right, KJ, what do you have?
Until the sand runs out.
Okay. Ragnar, what do you have?
Yeah, it's the same thing, just till the last grain of sand goes through the hourglass.
And Nick, what do you have?
I also had the last grain of sand going through the hourglass.
Okay, very good. It is the last grain of sand going through the hourglass.
Okay, I thought you were going to say you're all wrong.
No. That's correct.
I thought it was a tough measurement because she's clearly down the corridor in another room. She can't see the grains of sand.
And she's taking her time.
I would
turned out to not be
Come
true.
on, let's go, girl.
That was a very frustrating scene. Just don't eat the food. There's one thing you can't do. Don't eat the food.
Yeah, it's a tradition of folktales, right? There's an interdiction and you violate the interdiction. It's in every folktale.
But they didn't even make it sound like she got enchanted. She just made a decision, right? I thought they were going to try to explain it a little bit.
Well, I think like living in rural 1944 Franco Spain, you don't run across a lot of delicious grapes. I think she was starstruck by him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's the Adam and Eve story again and again, right? All folktales.
One thing you don't do.
Yeah.
Don't eat the food. Your life depends on it.
It has to happen. I mean, as a fairy
I
tale,
know.
it had to happen.
It has to happen. Yeah, it's kind of it's the structure of it. Exactly.
It's time for question 3.
Why did General Vidal smash his watch?
Locked in.
Locked in.
Locked in.
Okay, KJ, what do you have?
Because he thought he was gonna die and he wanted to know, or he thought he was gonna die and he wanted his son to know the exact time that he died.
Okay, Nick, what do you have?
I'm gonna elaborate on that. His father did this in the battlefield before, so he wanted to make sure that his son also knew exact time of death for him.
Okay, thank you.
If that wasn't clear.
Yes, pretty clear. Ragnar, what do you have?
I wonder if Nick, in a way, disqualified himself, but he did it to mark the time of his death and to teach his son this is the best way to die.
How did I disqualify myself?
Yeah, I didn't catch that. How did Nick disqualify
So,
himself?
No,
Nick was saying-
First, say the points, and then tell me. Because I think it's going everybody.
Unless you're disqualified.
Yeah.
That's why you gotta lock it in first.
Should I plead my case here?
Yeah, you
No,
can
I'm
plead.
because
trying to
that's
win
like
this thing.
actively going against.
I'm trying to
one of
win
your
this
other
thing.
contestants.
All right, Tom.
No,
Nick
no,
said
Tom, with the points.
he said
And
that
no,
he
then
did it
Ragnar.
because his father also did it. But he's wrong about that. He got the two confused. The son never smashed the clock, the pocket watch. It was already smashed. So he's thinking about a completely different character. The person that actually smashed the watch, we never see on screen. It's his father, not the son.
Yeah,
I
think that's a good point, but I'm going
Locked
to give
it
Nick.
No, but I think you
half point.
misunderstood what I'm saying. They told a story.
Read the story. Read it back, KJ. Read it back.
Yeah.
No,
Ragnar,
they
I'd
told
hate
a
to- I'm with
story
Nick.
about his father. The general's father was like this brave guy, and then you smash his clock. Then you see other pictures of him fixing his father's clock,
Right.
and then he's gonna smash it at the end for his son. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
But he doesn't smash it, nor does he attempt to smash the watch at the end. He just
Oh,
holds it.
really? Oh, then wait. The question then is the issue here, not the answers.
No. The
Hmm?
question is, why did General Vidal smash his
Yeah.
watch?
That's the
General
father.
is the
The
father.
son is a captain.
He's not
The
a
father
general.
is a general. Checkmate.
Whoa.
I'm gonna
hang
give
on,
you-
hang
Somehow
on,
we
hang
all
on,
got
hang
the
on.
points. Somehow
No,
we all
wait,
got the points.
Wait,
Oh.
now I'm kind of confused. All right, so we got Vidal. Yep.
Vidal, General Vidal.
And Captain
is-
Vidal.
Well, all
The
right, and then
father.
we'll say Vidal Senior.
Okay, Vidal Senior is
Did
the one who
Vidal Senior
smashed the-
smash his watch?
Yes.
Yes.
And then did Vidal smash his watch?
no.
No.
Oh. Then my
Well,
answer's wrong.
Well, then
Well,
we all lucked into
what did
points
you-
there.
I
you
thought at
guys
the end
see
of the
the
movie,
movie?
the guy we were following, Vidal, smashed his watch so his son would know his time of death.
Okay, that's
how did-
that's
but
the
how did
correct
you-
answer. You just
Got the
Got the
Vidal's
wrong
wrong?
Vidal.
Yeah,
But
and since you
you never
never
said-
specify
Luckily
which
it wasn't
Vidal you were
vital.
talking about.
When do you?
So
when do
we
you
all
see,
lucked into the answer there.
Yeah.
When do you see the younger, the junior smashing the watch?
Well, that's why I was a little confused. I was like, I don't remember seeing that.
Yeah.
This movie
But if
sucks.
Tom's
I don't
asking the
understand what's going
question.
on. KJ was like,
I'm
I don't speak Spanish, but I'm
glad
going to
we
watch him in
all
Spanish just to give
somehow
it a shot.
Got points there. Let's just put it that way.
Let's just say Nick gets half points.
No, let's think we all get full points or nobody gets points. There we go.
Okay, question number 4.
Wait, Tom, what are the points?
Points.
The points right now are Ragnar and Nick both have 6. KJ has 5.
It's time for question 4.
According to the fawn, in how many days will the moon be full?
Locked in.
Locked in.
Locked in with a guess.
All right, KJ, what do you have as your guess?
3, since we're doing fairy tale themes and 3 comes up a lot in fairy tales. 3.
All right, Ragnar, what do you have?
I also have 3. I just don't remember if he says it at the beginning or after a day, making it 4, but I'm going to lock in with 3.
Okay, and Nick, what do you have?
Dos.
2. Okay. And that means the episode goes to Ragnar.
Okay. Where does it say 3? Because there's one scene where he specifically says there's 2 days left, and you're
That
ruining
was
it.
after one day.
The fawn also
But
says
the
you have-
question was,
he says 3.
how many days
Does
Did
the
the
fawn?
fawn say?
And the
Did
fawn
the
says
fawn
3.
ever say in any dialogue
Yeah.
3 days?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he says 3.
Well, then you get the episode.
Yeah.
But I do know there was a scene where he said you got 2 days and
Goal.
you're ruining it. Are we
Mhm.
at least?
Well, he says in the scene of how many days does the fawn say the moon will be full?
Yeah. 3.
Is there another scene where he says it's 2? We could go to
That's what I'm thinking. When she eats the grapes and screws up, he's like, that's it. You screwed up. We only got 2 days. I could be wrong. I would love to be
Mhm.
fact checked on here, but that's the only time I thought he said something. Now I just want to know. I don't care if I'm right or wrong. I just want to
Mhm.
know.
We could fact check it, or we could go. We could have another bonus
We
question
could
if
just
you want.
no.
Bonus
He's got it. I'm
prize.
just curious.
Mhm. Yeah, you're not gonna like the bonus question anyway. So
Do you want to just give it to us for fun?
Yeah, I want to hear
sure.
it.
So here's the bonus. How many minutes late is Carmen and Ophelia?
Locked in.
Late for what?
In the beginning of the movie.
In the
So
beginning
I
of the
win
movie.
to arrive
Mhm.
at the cottage.
At the
or-
farm, or yeah.
Actually, this bonus will ease my guilt if the fawn actually said.
No, this is just for fun. It doesn't matter.
Locked in.
What do you have, KJ?
Just go for it.
40 minutes?
What do you have, Nick?
A day late.
What do you have, Ragnar?
15 minutes.
It's 15 minutes.
Oh,
I
but
have
how would
no
he
idea.
know? He's looking at the watch thinking, I guess it's 15 minutes.
No, he
That's what
fixed it.
says.
The watch was fixed.
Mhm.
Was
Watch
it?
is 6. Yeah,
At that
Did
point-
you watch the movie?
Yeah, he
You see
fixes
him-
it, but that's after they get there.
Yeah, no, he's constant. That's
Why-
maintenance. It's winding the clock. It's
he's
maintenance
just
to
oiling
keep it
it up.
clean.
Got it.
Have you ever
got
owned
it.
a watch?
Not like that.
I guarantee you he's not owned a watch you have to wind. I guarantee you.
No.
I have a watch you have to charge.
Apple doesn't make one of
Ah,
those.
Kids
Yeah.
these days.
Yeah. All right. So
Please, let's go to break.
let's please go to break.
Join another Talking Studios production, Limited Lexicon, where we play through text-based adventure games. Text-based adventure games were computer games from before computers had graphics. The game uses text to describe a scene, and the player types back how they want to interact with the game. I'll read the text from the computer, and my co-host will feed me commands. This season, we're playing through The Hobbit from 1982 on the ZX Spectrum. Here's a quick sample.
I thought a lot about our first command, and I think it should be no print because we don't want to print things as we're going along.
I think by default, it's not going to print. And even if I did type print, where is it going to print to? 1982?
I would imagine if we go west, we're going to be south of the troll, right? Just south of the troll
Yeah,
land.
let's try it.
You go west. The trolls clearing. The visible.
Oh, we died.
All right.
The troll saw us and killed us.
So I think we have to say the answer to the riddle then.
The answer is dark.
Say dark, I think.
Talk to what?
Goal.
Say Gollum dark.
You talk to Gollum. Thorin says, hurry up.
And we died.
And we died.
So we went northeast last time. So let's go southwest.
You go southwest. Visible exits are north, northwest. You see the valuable golden ring.
Oh.
We're ending it here. That's
Wait, wait.
perfect.
All
That's
right.
perfect.
Limited Lexicon, coming to your podcatcher and YouTube in late 2022 by Talking Studios.
And we're back. Congratulations to our winner of the week, which is Ragnar. Now we'll be diving into our topic of the week, fantasy and folklore with a history and in history.
So Tom, you brought this topic to us, fantasy and folklore with a history and in a history. You want to just introduce it for us?
Sure. So this topic was inspired by Vladimir Prop's book, Morphology of the Folktale.
For the audience at home, Tom has held up the book, Morphology in Folktale, to the camera.
Okay. Morphology of the Folktale, which is a study from 1929 of folktales. And their Prop's argument is that they structurally are the same, basically over and over again. And these structures we could see in this. What I find interesting about this, about the incorporation of these kind of structural elements into this movie, is that very often a folk tale or a fairy tale, and a fairy tale would be kind of a subcategory of a folk tale, they take place in a different world. It could be a truly different world, like we see in Lord of the Rings, or it could be a world where you're bridged to from the real world. Think of the Chronicles of Narnia or Peter Pan or something like that. What I found interesting with this is that, and why all my questions are around time and the passage of time and what have you, and the specificity of the passage of time, is that this kind of folktale is inside of historical moments and a history itself. It's inside of this kind of last stand of the loyalist against the Phalange. It has a specific year in which it starts, and the opening, the prelude or the prologue to the movie, juxtaposes the history of Moana, the princess, with the history of the rebels fighting in the hills in Spain. Um, and that's why I brought this forward. That's this idea of kind of these dual histories, this folk tale history, which is sort of repetitious and in a non-space, on top of or within an actual historical event that's unfolding.
So can we just go through some of the parallels then? I tried to.
We interrupt this podcast for some breaking news. It
Mhm.
does appear that the fawn said the moon will be full in 3 days. Back to you, Tom.
Okay. So Ragnar wins in the last question.
Audience, I'm glad we cleared that up.
Mhm.
Well, so Tom, when I was watching this movie, and you had brought up the topic, I really wanted to find parallels between what Ophelia was doing and what was happening in history.
Mhm.
And here's the best I came up with, right? So the first task was, hey, Ophelia, go get a key. And then Mercedes' boyfriend gets a key. And then, okay, Ophelia, go use the key to get a weapon. Mercedes' boyfriend uses a key to get the weapons. And then the third task I couldn't. Is that what we're talking about? That direct?
I don't think necessarily they're directly parallels, in the sense of each task has a similar task going on in the real world. What I think is where I don't know exactly how the fairy tale helps us explain history. And I think that's what's interesting about it, is that I don't really have a quick answer to it, other than it's a little girl who's dealing with a kind of monstrous circumstance.
The fairy tale is escapism, right? That's her way of coping with the world around her. Am I off base here?
That sounds good to me. I mean, I would say the one thing is that her escapes are often very horrifying. Right?
Yeah, and there's no parallels. Like in Wizard of Oz, each of the characters in Kansas show up in Oz, right? So usually if you're doing the escapism thing, you have characters that, oh, she's either afraid or whatever of Videl, so then there would be a Videl in the fantasy world that she's dealing with, and she should overcome and succeed there. That helps her then in the real world when she faces Videl.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think this movie did this.
But from a different perspective, she is weak and, dare I say, feels useless in the real world, where here she's a hidden princess that has to go through these tasks to get back to her kingdom. So even though the creatures she meets along the way are gruesome or challenging or just literally deadly, it's still better than the death and all of the things going on around her in this mill in the forest during this, I guess it's a revolution, right? Like that's what it is.
Yeah, it is. It's sort of the tail end of the revolution, or whatever effort they have left. But
her horrifying experiences are better than her real world experiences. Is kind of what I'm getting at.
I think that's a good point, because one has agency and one doesn't. So even if it's horrifying, you can do something in that world, unlike with Videl, where she just has no power whatsoever.
I think KJ, you might be putting a barrier between the two worlds, when maybe for her there isn't a barrier. There is no Videl captain enemy, because he is in her world. The whole thing, the whole experience is her fantasy. So the evil captain in the real world is her evil captain. That's why there is no, counterpart, so to speak, in the other world. The whole thing is, think of it, you have to really put yourself as a 9-year-old. I mean, you have daughters, I have daughters. We know how it's just one world for her. She doesn't even know she's making it up. She doesn't even know she's escaping because her stress level is through the roof, that she's just kind of partially gone,
And Ragnar, I love that you brought up barriers or boundaries. Audience, I talk about this every time I get a chance, but I love boundaries in fantasy stories, like in Harry Potter, right? Platform 9 3/4. In The Hobbit, kind of the edge of the Shire. We even talked about it in Home Alone a little bit. But here, there are a lot of distinct boundaries, right? There's the labyrinth over there and the farmhouse over here. She has to use chalk to draw a door to get to Fantasyland. She has to go into that tree to face the toad. But that's very interesting, Ragnar, that you're saying that, sure, those boundaries and barriers are obvious and we can see them. But to her, it's one continuous world that she's dealing with.
The only way she gets to, well, presumably gets there, which is extremely sad at the ending, to the reward of the other universe is upon her demise, which is, again, very, very sad. That's the only time we actually see her transported out of our world, if you want to call it that, to a true fantasy realm, briefly, or happily ever after, depending on how you want to interpret it.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it's also, if you look at the design of fairy tales as Prop puts forward, a lot of the plot points in a fairy tale also include in this movie the quote unquote real world, right? So, like the villain is punished. And then at the end, it ends with the hero either marrying or ascending the throne. So we see Ophelia now as Moana ascending the throne. But the villain being punished is Vidal, right? It's not one of these monsters. And this is a punishment that she is not witnessing, right? This is a punishment we're witnessing. She's dead already, or about to die. And so the plot points that are necessary to make a folktale or folklore include the real world in it, right? They include the kind of usurpation by a villain. That doesn't happen in the fantasy world. That happens in the real world. And so it's almost as if the structure of this kind of fantasy is so vital, not only to Ophelia, but to any kind of storyteller in making even truth, right? Even detailing historical occurrences, that it almost all becomes folklore, because only then can it become understood.
That's what I thought you were going for with the topic, because what these events, like you were saying, the tail end of this revolution against Franco in the 40s, by this point, when remembered and when looked upon, it's almost like another fairy tale, which history has a way of becoming a story, a folk tale, a fairy tale. So that's why they picked kind of this romanticized period to create this folk tale, this fairy tale, to put this girl in there and have her have a fairy tale within a folk tale within history. That's why I love this movie. It's so rich and layered with just great stories on top of each other. That's what really draws me to this movie.
Yeah, and I think your conversation about there not being barriers, right, is true in terms of the plot, and it's true in terms of the kind of structure of the plot. If we recognize that the moves folktales make are being made in the real world, right? So like you're saying, it is a romanticized version of this rebellion, which fails. We know from history.
Of course.
It fails.
I mean, even the doctor stand, there's heroic stand, the woman being saved at the end, when she's about to be descended upon by the soldiers, at the last moment, her friends save her. These are folktale moments. These are fairy tale moments in history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it is less fantastical than, you know, Ophelia becoming Moana, but it's no less it's no less a, what would you call that, a corrective, a lightening of something that actually is really dark, right? In both cases we end on a kind of fantasy moment. A little girl's killed, no, she's a princess. The rebels win, you know. Um, both of these things are much brighter than what actually did happen.
Absolutely. And that's a trend that's happening. Well, one director, I mean, if you think about Quentin Tarantino, right? If you think about his most recent movies, this is exactly what he's doing that Guillermo del Toro was doing 20 years ago or almost 20 years ago. It's finding a little ray of hope in the past and brightening it up and making the past into a folklore, even if you have to, you know, change the facts a little bit.
Well, I'd like to once again congratulate our own Princess Moana, Ragnar. Congratulations.
It's a dream come true.
Aren't you glad you won this one?
It's the best win yet.
Mm-hmm.
You can rate and review this show anywhere podcasts are available. For those viewing in YouTube land, if you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the Talking Studios channel for all our exciting content, and follow us on Twitter at Talking Studios. Check out other shows by Talking Studios, including Keep Making Movies, where we explore micro-budget films, Limited Lexicon, where we play through text-based adventure games, and Get the Point, where we slowly reveal a movie poster and try to guess which movie poster it is. Got a question for us? Call the Talking Studios hotline at 201-467-8679 and leave a message. It may be featured on a future episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to Talking Pictures Trivia wherever fine podcasts are found.
Join us next time when we discuss a fantasy movie from the 2010s, Warcraft from 2016. Stay tuned for our first impressions of this film.
Ding, 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 ding.
Next week, we'll be discussing Warcraft from 2016. Tom, how was your watch?
Oh boy, I forgot this movie existed, and I've never played Warcraft, so I went in completely blind.
Never?
Monday, I don't think I've ever played Warcraft.
Like Warcraft 2 Tides of Darkness? No?
I don't think I've ever played that game. I think I've seen you guys play it, and I thought, well, this just isn't for me. And I'm positive I've never played it because I've never purchased it. And I've had a few games that I've played. I'm not a big gamer, but I've had a few games I played. I've never played Warcraft. But I watched this movie 2 days ago after I remembered it existed and we were doing it for the podcast on my computer. Boy, was this a movie. It's really certainly is a movie. It has a beginning, it has a middle, it has an end. It has actors.
Does it though?
Sometimes. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's rough. I honestly, guys, I didn't do the research on the source material, so I'm not sure how well it honors the source material. I think though that after watching this movie, I appreciated more someone like Peter Jackson, who's able to take a really big myth structure filled with different creatures and settings and special effects and whatnot, and craft it in a way that is unbelievably enjoyable and entertaining. And you forget how difficult that is until you see David Bowie's Child's Warcraft film. Pat, how was your first watch?
So I'm quite the opposite. I did play Warcraft, and I played all the Warcrafts. I played Warcraft 1, 2, 3, and then eventually got sucked into World of Warcraft. So I was very excited for the movie, as was much of the community when it came out. I didn't watch it in theaters because it did get such a terrible review when it was released. So I did wait to watch it from home. It wasn't the worst movie I've ever watched, but definitely one that I have not revisited. and I was largely disappointed by it. Was kind of hoping a little more, but I do feel like I have that attachment to things when it's a source material that I know quite a bit about. It feels a little off when something isn't matching. You're waiting for that specific scene or that specific moment, and then they change it, or it's different, or whatever the case is. So yeah, it was an experience, to say the least. What did you think about it, KJ, as a StarCraft fan?
Yeah, StarCraft. I love StarCraft. But my introduction to Warcraft was Warcraft 2, the predecessor to StarCraft back in the day. Nick and I played with our friend Doug, who's been on the show a bunch, founder of the show. And then Warcraft 3 came out. I played that quite a bit. And I remember the cinematic trailer for Warcraft 3. There's this crow on a field that turns into a battlefield with the orcs and the knights. And I thought, wow, these guys should make a movie. And I was wrong. I could not keep my eyes open the first time I watched this movie. I watched it recently with my daughter. I could not keep my eyes open the second time I tried to watch this movie. I asked my daughter, hey, what'd you think? She goes, I couldn't really follow the plot. I don't think anybody can follow the plot. Audience, good luck if you try to watch this movie. How about you, Nick? What'd you think?
So I played a lot of Blizzard Entertainment games, and I will say Warcraft 2 Tides of Darkness blew my mind when I was younger. It was a crazy game. I couldn't believe that I could dial through my phone to call KJ's computer and we could play a game against each other. It was mind blowing, unless one of our folks decided to pick up the phone and then we'd yell, I'm on the computer, get off the phone. And it would disconnect the game and we'd have to start over. So that may be of a bygone error, but I loved Warcraft. I did play Warcraft 3, was not good at it, still gave it a shot. And I played WoW, World of Warcraft Vanilla. So when it first came out, I played, and I had to get away from it because it would just consume one's life. If I had any close friends who also were into that time, I'd probably still be playing it over a decade later. So it was interesting. Now, I was really looking forward to this movie. It got delayed a ton of times. I wonder why. Some of it was that the visual effects weren't up to par when it first was announced. And I think they actually did okay with that for the time. But just like KJ said, there is a plot problem in this film. This is what happens when you try to create a franchise without realizing if you created a good enough movie to continue the franchise. So we'll get a little bit more into that later, as well as how it did domestically versus global markets, which is quite fascinating. So looking forward to that conversation next week.
Wow, Talking Studios,